Good afternoon. We're about to start. This session will be recorded. We encourage you to open the chat feature at the bottom of your screen and introduce yourself and your organization. Please set your chat that it's sent to all panelists and attendees. Welcome, everyone. We are grateful that you are joining us today. Again, a reminder that this is being recorded, and I will now ask the President and CEO of the Heart of Florida United Way to get us started. Jeff Hayward.
Thank you, Ray. As Ray said, my name is Jeff Hayward. I'm President and CEO of Heart of Florida United Way. And I want to welcome you all to this convening. I know we're all busy and we're all sitting in front of our computers in Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, it seems. So I do appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. As Ray said, a reminder that today's session is being recorded, and we'll be able to post that and also capture the chat box if there's any questions or follow-up that we're going to need to do. In the meantime, I would ask that you, as Ray instructed, please put your name and organization in the chat box so we know who's here. I also want to welcome a couple of special guests, Todd Weaver, who is the City Commissioner of Winter Park, Tiana Hale, who's the City Commissioner of Winter Springs, and Pam Gould, who's a member of the Orange County School Board. We want to welcome you as elected officials very much. We also have several staff from our federal, state, and local delegations, and we thank you for taking the time to be with us and representing your offices as well. Many of you were at the first convening. If you recall, it was right after the first executive order was passed. There was a sigh of relief there for a while, thinking that we were going to be able to protect many of our fellow citizens in their housing and make sure that they were able to maintain their stable housing and they would avoid eviction. But we realized pretty quickly that that was just a temporary fix, that the conversation wasn't happening, which we saw was inevitable, and that would be that a wave of evictions would be coming down the pipe once the moratorium was lifted. We started reaching out to our elected officials and our Chief Judge, Don Myers, our Clerk of Courts, Tiffany Moore Russell, and the legal aid societies, and we asked them to weigh in, and they educated many of us on what was going on and how the court system would eventually reopen once the executive order was lifted. We started doing some advocacy, and we sounded the alarm in this community as to what would be happening. Many of you on this call in the agencies that we deal with on a day-to-day basis of partnerships, whether it be HSN or CRN or many, many others, we want to thank you for coming together and being part of that conversation. The issue we've got coming up is we learned from the Clerk of Courts that on any given month during a good day, we would be experiencing about 1,000 evictions a month. And again, that's when the economy was doing just fine. So if you look back over the past 5 or 6 months, at that pace, when the moratorium is eventually lifted, we could be looking at a minimum of 6,000 to 8,000 evictions. Then you add COVID-19 and all of the unemployment issues that that has brought to that, and we could be looking at as many as 8,000 to 10,000 evictions after September 1st if the moratorium is not extended and the courts begin to process these evictions. We also learned that Florida was a pay-to-play state. And what that means is once the tenant is served by the landlord with a 3-day notice to quit, they then have a 5-day period in which they have a right to respond to the courts. However, in order to file that response with the courts, their filing has to be accompanied with the proceeds or the amount of dollars that is in question. So if I'm behind 3 months of my rent, my monthly rent is $1,000, I get to file my response to the court only if my response is accompanied by $3,000, the amount of arrearage is in question. And if I don't have the $3,000 to file, then it is relatively automatic. I can't file my response, and quite honestly, I never get my day in court. That's the definition of a pay-to-play state. So as we've been watching the moratorium be extended, And again, we're buying time, but we know that the rent meter is still running. Rent is continuing to accrue. People thankfully are staying in their apartments for the most case, but this is continuing to be an issue and becoming a bigger issue, not only for tenants, but for landlords themselves. They're not getting their rent. They have to pay their mortgages. They have to obviously upkeep their apartments. So it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue for both sides of the equation. Well, a lot has happened since this last convening. Many dollars in CARES Act funding has been made available. $250 million, for example, was made available by the governor. And locally, I just got to take a minute to thank and congratulate Mayor Jerry Demings. Mayor Demings recently announced the Orange County Eviction Diversion Program, where they took $20 million of CARES Act money that Orange County had and worked with the courts, worked with the legal aid societies, the judges, the attorneys, the clerk of courts, of course, and ourselves. And they now have an eviction diversion program in place. $20 million is not going to solve it for everybody. But again, I just want to thank Mayor Demings and give him his proper due for the leadership that he's shown over the last few weeks, very quickly in putting that program together. So thank you, Mayor Demings. The goal of today is to follow up where we left off and take into account new information, the new status of where we are. We wanted to bring community leaders. Many of you have been talking amongst yourselves, others have been on other convenings, but we wanted to get community leaders together today to get updates from each of you, particularly from the jurisdictions. As you know, much of this is being handled on a county-to-county basis. We also wanted to hear directly from CareerSource. We have Pam Neighbors here, the president and CEO of CareerSource, as we know that there are resources for employability, but it continues to be difficult. We got some fairly good news this morning in that the numbers just released from Florida showed that new unemployment claims have dropped, but the numbers are still not good. We know, for example, Florida was the worst in the state. Now we're 5th. It's still not great. We know that Orange County still ranks 3rd, Osceola ranks 9th, and Seminole ranks 13th in the state for the percentage of unemployment. Those are daunting numbers that unless people are working, it goes without saying, they're not having revenue and income coming into their home. They can't pay their rent, and this again exacerbates the problem. So that's what we're here for today. I want to thank our panelists for being here and bringing their expertise. We've got a great group of people listening in, and we're looking forward to a great dialogue. So I'll turn it back over to our facilitator, Ray Larson. Right?
Thank you, Jeff. And I want to add my word of welcome to everyone. We really appreciate you joining us. Wanted to just handle a couple of housekeeping types of items. We've certainly shared with you that this session will be recorded. Also need to make you aware that you will be muted throughout this webinar. There will be opportunities to pose questions through the Q&A box. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Hopefully all of you have had the opportunity to open your chat boxes. Just want to remind you, if you haven't, to please do that. It's at the bottom of your screen. And please make it so that your chats are sent to all panelists and attendees. That's way we'll all be able to see them. If you haven't introduced yourself in your organization, please feel free. We're hoping that the chat box is a place to communicate with one another. And also, if there's any resources you'd like to make the group aware of or to share with us, you can do that using the chat box. We'd also ask that you open up the Q&A feature. Again, that's at the bottom of your screen. Just click on it to open it. After each of our presentations, there'll be an opportunity for a question or two, and we'll be taking those from that Q&A box. So encourage you to use that, the Q&A box for that purpose. You know, all of us are getting pretty good at this, these virtual meetings. Probably all of us have spent more time on Zoom than we'd ever thought we would spend time on Zoom. Just a couple of thoughts about that. People are working in unusual places like their home and those sort of things. We're going to be okay with that situation. And so if your dog comes and jumps on your lap, or your toddler comes to give you a kiss or something like that, we're all going to be okay with that. Also, we've been receiving some notes from others that Zoom has been experiencing some difficulties at times. We've tried to plan for those contingencies, but if you happen to get bumped off or something happens, please feel free to rejoin us. we will do the same. And again, we'll just kind of roll with the punches as we go along. It's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists, good friends and experts as we go along. Diane Arnold is the manager of the Citizen Resource and Outreach Division at Orange County Government. Karam Urna is the manager at the Coalition for the Homeless at Central Florida. Carrie Longsworth is a division manager for community assistance with Seminole County Government. Celestia McLeod is the Human Services Director at Osceola County Government. Pam Neighbors is the President and CEO of Career Source of Central Florida. And Allison Thal is the Director of Community Services with Seminole County Government. So panelists, we're grateful for the time that you're sharing with us today and your expertise. So thank you very much. So I need to call a little bit of an audible here. We were going to start with Diane, but I think she's having some difficulty connecting with us. So Rosanna, I want to give you a heads up, and Carrie and Allison, I'm going to ask if we couldn't start with your presentation from Seminole County.
All right, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I think I've unmuted myself correctly.
Can hear you.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carrie Longsworth. I am the Community Assistance Division Manager here at Seminole County. So I oversee financial prevention services as well as homeless services. So what we've actually been doing is my team's been working super hard, working with these tenants who have been applying. We started to see an influx in requests for our regular prevention assistance to keep people housed at the end of March 23rd. That's when we really started getting a massive pickup. So between March 23rd and July 17th, we had about 1,600 people that have applied for services to try and keep them in their homes. That was before, when we started doing it, before CARES money was even available, before it was coming on the scene. We were just using our regular general revenue and some other funds that we had access to. When the CARES funds did become available, we're getting, dollars from the Department of Treasury. We've got some emergency solution dollars, some community services block grants, some community services, our community development grant dollars. So we've been kind of working with those, our coronavirus relief funds, through the state. So we've been working with those to actually set up a rental prevention assistance program. We are actually looking to assist residents of Seminole County who have experienced a COVID-related loss since March. It'd be a job loss, hours reduced, maybe it was a temporary furlough, maybe they didn't have hours reduced, but they were primarily tip-based employees, such as a restaurant worker or a hairstylist or something of that sort. And they were impacted either through the governor's shutdown or just in general because of everything happening with the coronavirus. So we're looking to assist those households that are past due. We're also assisting households that may not be past due yet, but have suffered that experience, and maybe they've had to put things on credit cards they normally didn't have to do, burn through all their savings, and now they're completely out of funds. So we are going to be assisting them with up to $5,000 to be able to pay that rent and or mortgage, as well as utility bills. We're looking at water, gas, and electric. So we're either going to be able to clear them up, get them current, hopefully for the most part. We do understand there are some residents who may be a little further behind than that, so we're going to be working with them one-on-one on a case-by-case basis. Our portal for assistance opened yesterday. We did get that open yesterday morning at 10 a.m. We have received a lot of applications at this point. I think we're over 5,000 or 6,000 applications that have come in so far of residents that are seeking assistance. So we are going to be targeting and gearing up and getting ready to start processing those payments. Our office has also been working, like I said, since March on working through people who've applied through our regular system, and we just surpassed getting about $1 million out to those residents. So that was a big accomplishment for everyone in our office. We pretty much had all hands on deck since then, had to bring in some temporary staff to also work with that. We've also been in communication with our Seminole County Legal Aid Bar Association to kind of help us work through what can we do for those that are already, their landlords are starting to send them the court paperwork or sending them eviction notices. we're getting a lot of calls where landlords are telling them to get out by the end of the month. They're trying to, not go through the full process, just trying to scare tenants and get them out. So we've been in conversation with our legal aid office to see how can we jump in and try to assist that type of a situation. What can legal aid do from their standpoint to try and maybe put a stay or something like that on it while we work through the process. We've also been in talks with our clerk's office to kind of see how we can get that process stood up. So we are working through that as well. But that's basically what we're doing here in Seminole right now as far as direct client assistance. We're also funding some of our nonprofits who are providing similar services. We're going through that process as well to try and help the nonprofits to be able to push out dollars to the community as well as they're struggling to stay afloat. And Allison, did you have anything you wanted to add on top of that?
Allison, before you respond, I just wanted to remind everyone, you have the opportunity to pose questions to Carrie and Allison by opening the Q&A box and typing your questions in there. I'm sorry, Allison, go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. But I think the only thing I wanted to add is the understanding that we have a tremendous need, just like the county who is surrounding us, with respect to our residents who are in some form of financial distress as a result of this COVID and having lost funding. And we too obviously are one of the recipients of Healthy Cares dollars, and we actually have spoken with our upper management as well, because based on, as Carrie pointed out, the fact that our portal opened and need that we come in, we are
Allison, I'm sorry, we've lost your audio.
Okay, let me find out why.
We heard that.
Am I
Try
back?
again.
Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm not sure why, but basically, I'm just saying that we are working closely, and our commissioners and our county manager are very cognizant and very supportive of being able to help our residents. So we are hoping that we can stretch our CARES dollars and our Corona Relief Fund dollars and be able to leverage and commingle our funds to help those who are past due or those who are about to be past due. We're an all hands on deck organization, so just Seminole County residents are very important to us, and we're going to continue as best we can to help them in any way possible.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Carrie. There is a question in our Q&A box asking, where can we find the portal that opened yesterday for Seminole County?
So that's actually on our website. It's www.seminolecares.com. When you get to that website, that's our Just Cares overall page. There'll be a section where you'll click individual assistance. The individual assistance will give you all the documents that we're requesting, frequently asked questions, as well as an ability to apply here. We do recommend that our residents are applying as soon as possible because, like I've said, we've gotten significantly more requests than we initially anticipated. And so I don't know how long we'll be able to keep the portal open. We have to go through that first 5,000 or 6,000 to see where that puts us financially before we start going through. Right now it is open, but if residents need the assistance, I would definitely recommend they do that, today or tomorrow at the latest, to try and make sure they get in.
Thank you. I think all of us who have opened up lines for resources have oftentimes met overwhelming responses. We track in our 211 call center, we track calls in regard to evictions, people that are being evicted or fear that they're being evicted. And just last week, we had over 535 calls of people indicating that. So I think your experience, our experience, and others certainly speaks to the need out there in our community as we go forward. Thank you so much, Carrie and Allison. I'm sure I hope that we have a little bit more time for questions towards the end, and encourage our attendees to use the question and answer box to pose your questions as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wanted to turn now to Osceola County, to my good friend Celestia McLeod. And Celestia, look forward to hearing about what's happening in Osceola County.
Okay, I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Celestia McLeod. I'm Human Services Director for Osceola County. And like Seminole County, we started out early on in March, getting an increase of requests through our regular programs. March until August, we actually used SHIP dollars to assist those requests for rental payments. We opened up on August the 3rd for our regular CARES dollars. And what we're doing under that program is we're providing, like Seminole County, 3 months worth of rent or mortgage payments up to $5,000, because our goal is to at least try to catch those up that are behind. But even if they're not behind, they can still qualify if they had that COVID impact. So loss of job, reduced hours, those sort of things that Carrie mentioned briefly. On August the 3rd, we accepted over 6,100 applications. So right now we are working 4,000 of those that are in the system right now. So we'll continue to work through that list until we exhaust all the fundings that we have. Osceola County has to get their money through the state. We weren't a direct recipient of those funds from the federal government. So a part of what we're trying to figure out too is how do we access more of those funds, because initially the state only gave the jurisdiction 25% of the initial request, which was 65 million, but we only received about 16 million. So we're operating off of that 16 million now, hoping that we will be able to access more of those dollars that have been approved for Osceola County that are sitting up at the state. We tried to streamline our program and make it as easy as possible. Basic documentation, ID, the hardship letter, an application, lease or mortgage statement, and we're paying the payments of the applicants directly to the landlord or the mortgage holder. We're not sure right now what our evictions are going to look like, but we will be having some conversations with the courts to try to see where some of those things are right now. But our main focus has been to get people caught up on their rent and their mortgage at this time. We're also looking at completing an agreement with HSN to try to take care of some of those folks that are in the hotels. So some prevention, intervention, diversion services for some of our homeless folks that are out in the community in the hotel. So very similar to what Seminole County is doing, but no, we need to try to see at this point where we are as far as evictions that have been filed and what would we be able to do in reference to those people that may be facing or already in the eviction process. We're just working through it, hoping to get access to more funds. We put $11 million in the rental assistance program, the initial program that opened August the 3rd. So we think we'll get through that within the next 6 weeks and hope to be able to access more money from the state to open up another round. But I'm not sure right now when that is going to be or if it's going to happen.
Thank you, Celestia. And I'll encourage our attendees to use the Q&A box to pose any questions you might have. Celestia, I had a question because it's something that we've dealt with and probably everybody that's doing this type of work has dealt with. How are your citizens providing those documents, uploading them or dropping them off? How do they provide those documents?
So for Osceola County, we have two options for providing documents. So we use Zoom grants, which is different from this Zoom that we're using right now for this presentation. So they can upload the documents through Zoom grant, or they can drop the documents off at our office. So we're allowing two different ways for us to get those documents turned in. For the most part, I think, the digital divide is absolutely there for some people. So we've received more paper applications than I thought we would. So we have a lot of people just coming up to the office, dropping them off, which has been good.
Great. Carrie or Allison, I probably should ask that question to you all as well, the documents and how people can provide them.
So right now with the portal opening, everything is going through the portal. They have to be uploaded into that system. Previously, before the portal opened, we had a Dropbox outside of our office, as well as taking them inside, and we had an email option that someone could send documents into. But right now, everything is being uploaded, and it can be uploaded from a smartphone as well.
And could I ask both you and Celestia, if someone is having difficulty navigating it, is there any organization or any helpline that's available to support people trying to do applications?
Yes, Seminole County has a call center that is part of the company that we contracted with to open up the portal. That's on our Seminole Cares website. It's an 877 number. They will actually walk you through uploading and how to get through the application process. Residents who don't have computer access can also go to our libraries and access the portal that way as well. Or like I said, they're able to do it from their smartphone device, which is a lot of our residents do have that ability to take a picture of a document and upload it that way.
And that's the same for Osceola County. We're not working with an agency, but we have dedicated lines at our office that are answered 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, if folks are having difficulty navigating through the system. So they can just call in and get that assistance.
Well, I certainly appreciate that in both counties. You know, I think I speak for a certain segment of our population who aren't the best at technology and stuff like that, and sometimes need to get a little bit of help or assistance in doing that. So thank you for that. I believe that Diane Arnold from Orange County has been able to join us via an audio line. Diane, are you with us? Well, I think she's still working on those technical issues, and we'll go back to her in just a moment. So as you can see, we're kind of shuffling along. We said we'd be okay with this. So Pam, if it's okay with you, I'd like to turn to you and ask you to share. You know, we know that when these assistance lines open, when United Way's opened theirs, when our calls to 211, we know the response has been overwhelming. We know that the situation changes weekly, sometimes daily, as far as what resources are available and what can be done. And it can be confusing, but we also know that jobs are going to be key, and people are looking to upskill, or people are looking to start a new career as they respond to this. And I know that CareerSource has programs that can be helpful to that. So could I turn it over to you and have you share what's happening at CareerSource?
Certainly. So I think I have some slides that maybe I can get Rosanna to pull up so that I can talk through them. And thank you very much, United Way, Jeff and team, and all of you for having CareerSource Central Florida as a part of the presentation today. Really great dialogue so far about how to access resources related to housing in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of our journey as CareerSource Central Florida through our COVID-19 experience, as many of yours has been, and then talk a little bit about what resources we have for all of our counties, and then our new resource that we actually received through Orange County through the CARES Act resources, our Help Us Here Orange County grant program. So if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So, you know, it's good to hear some of the, I think, good news, Jeff, at the top of the presentation, that our unemployment rate and the number of unemployed is slightly less as we approach the end of August. However, with that said, we still know that this was the picture in July timeframe, and we know that Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Lake, and Sumter, which is also part of our workforce region called Region 12, has been severely hit with economic downturn. And the numbers of people unemployed and receiving reemployment insurance through the state are really still over 250,000 people in the overall region. And that's a pretty significant impact to our region, and certainly nothing like it was back in February. And so it's very important for CareerSource Central Florida to partner with so many of you to be able to provide resources for employment and training. And so it's a pretty daunting task ahead of us, I think, and that we also know that recovery and jobs coming back into our region and into our market, particularly in the tourism and hospitality, has not been at the rate at which they were lost. And so we know that there are going to be some probably more difficult times ahead of us, but it's also an opportunity for us to help residents to identify where they can make themselves most competitive in the region as they move forward with looking for a new job or a new career. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is actually how CareerSource Central Florida kind of responded overall, beginning back in March. You know, beginning at the end of February and March, we all knew that there was pretty significant impact to our region. And actually since March 16th, CareerSource Central Florida as a region has been operating virtually. And so we were very, very happy and pleased that in really a week's worth of time, we were able to take all of the services that we provide, everything from resume consultation, employment counseling, to registration for training and enrollment into training and job placement into a virtual setting. And so we had, by the end of June, actually in this overall approach, served over 80,000 or just about 80,000 people in the region with some kind of individualized service with our career consultants and our business consultants. We're actually in what we call phase 2, which means that we are still virtual, and really what's interesting, and probably to many of you, note that people are still accessing us to a great degree in the virtual space because COVID is still happening around us and people feel more comfortable with that setting. But in addition, we have also reopened for appointment our career centers. And in Orange County currently, our career center at the South, and what we call the Southeast Career Center at the core at Cimarron and Hoffner, has opened Monday through Friday by appointment. And also we have, I'll talk a little bit later about our West Orange Center is reopening next week for appointments at our new location, which is the West Oaks Mall, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But we hope that as we go through the fall, that the cases in COVID in our region will continue to decline, and we'll be able to provide additional services and additional appointment slots, because as you've all been talking, we know that there are a certain number of people who do not have high-speed internet access or access to the computers that they need to actually apply for unemployment or get job search assistance or find out about training programs. So we're going to be continuing to identify how we safely expand the services that are in person, as well as continue to add value services in the online and virtual setting. Next slide, please. So I mentioned our West Orange Career Center. I was just actually there this morning. It is at the West Oaks Mall. For those of you who have been to the West Oaks Mall, the West Oaks Mall is really reinventing itself as not only a retail space, but a community service space. The Orange County Tax Collector's Office is actually right across the hallway from the new CareerSource Central Florida office. And we will be opening by appointment next Monday. We have some limited appointments as we open, or kind of soft opening in the next week or so. But you see up there, our online appointments are all available through our website, careersourcecentralflorida.com, or we do have an 800 number, 800-757-4598. That is a great way to access services, particularly for your clients or customers or constituents who don't have access to internet. We can actually, through that 800 number, provide many of the services, walk people through an application, for example, for reemployment, or talk to them about the many services that we provide. As you see there, we also have self-service at the location so that people can claim their weeks in order to continue to get their unemployment benefits. They can also do job search and access the things that they need to continue those benefits or to begin their job search. Just a reminder, CareerSource Central Florida is the Workforce Development Board for our 5-county footprint here in and around Orlando. And so, as I mentioned, as of June, we had already served 80,000 people. In the month of July, we are over 15,000 individuals, which is actually 3 times the number we saw in July of 2019. So we anticipate that the demand for our services and for our partnership and services with many of you is going to continue to be strong as we go through the fall months. To the next slide, please. So I mentioned that we were also successful in working with Orange County to receive $7 million of the CARES Act grant resources. And specifically, Orange County has had, the second number highest unemployment claims and claimants in Florida, nearly 162,000 as of July, and or actually 250,000 people as of July. And 20% of the workforce are employed in leisure and hospitality. And as you can imagine, those have been the sectors, as we know, that have been most impacted. Florida overall has lost jobs in all sectors except for construction, which we're actually continuing to see opportunities for both job placement and training in those areas. We are seeing some smaller businesses, particularly in essential workforce, coming back. Healthcare continues to hire, manufacturing, transportation, and some reopening in food service, in response to Florida overall reopening. And so those are all of the small businesses in particular that CareerSource is serving through our business service unit. Next slide, please. So overall, the Help is Here Orange County game plan is very much the same as the services that we provide on an annual basis through our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's just expanded to accommodate additional need in Orange County. So we hope to serve 4,000 Orange County residents who are displaced or impacted by COVID-19 and our economic downturn. And our target is to get 75% of them employed back close to where they left the market by June 30 of 2021. And if we do that, we know that the impact will be significant to Central Florida's economy. And what we can do for our residents is many different things: short and long-term goal setting, resume review, updating, a lot of soft skill development, language classes, step-by-step guidance for employment and reemployment, and then direct referral to our partners, Orange Technical College, Valencia. We're working with the Urban League of Central Florida, Seminole State, United Against Poverty, and many more organizations that usually annually are involved with us in training, in on-the-job opportunities, and internships. And then we also have some resources as people are engaged in the training in particular to support them with transportation assistance if needed, or technology support if needed for those programs. And one of the things that we know is that if demand right now does not equal the labor supply that we have, that this is an opportunity, particularly in the fall months, to take advantage of looking at the skills that an individual has and identifying what short-term skill training or skill platform portfolio they could add to their resume that would make them more marketable as our regional economy continues to recover. Next slide, please. So again, for the Help is Here Orange County residents, and really for option 6, but also for any resident in Orange, Osceola, or Seminole counties or Lake County that are impacted, you can refer directly or call directly to that line or go online. Actually, for the Help is Here grant, there is a form application, a very short application to fill out. You do need to be an Orange County resident, show that you have been impacted, very similarly to my colleagues who talked in both Seminole and Osceola County to demonstrate that you have been impacted by COVID-19 or the economic downturn. And we're going to help you to go through that process as my colleagues do also in the housing space. So we're rapidly and very quickly already, we have over 500 individuals who have expressed interest in the program, and we're working through those applications, but definitely we've got an opportunity to serve many individuals in Orange County and can continue to serve individuals in our Osceola area, as well as our Seminole and Lake and Sumter areas. So we very much rely on many of you and appreciate your partnership to get the word out and also to partner with us to get our residents back employed and back able to pay their rent and be self-sustaining with their families. So I think that was my last slide. If you go to the next, it probably says thank you. Yes. And I will stop there, Ray, and see if there might have been some questions that came in.
Yeah, Pam, thank you. It's great stuff. And there are a couple questions. And let me remind our attendees that if they'd like to pose a question to Pam about CareerSource, to please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. One of the questions that somebody submitted, Pam, is you were talking about, I think you said you're receiving 3 times the normal traffic that you normally would. And I think you're trying to get a feel for these times. Is that, how many of them were newly unemployed, you know, that because of COVID, they've become unemployed? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, so if I look at last year, so the year, of course, our year starts in the July timeframe. And if I look at 2019, 2018, 2019, last year we served overall about 40,000 individuals. And you heard me say that we served 80,000 as of June of 2020. So literally, I could easily say that 40,000 individuals were new participants coming to CareerSource Central Florida. And you know, what's interesting, Ray, is that there are a lot more out there because in the reemployment space right now, the governor has continued to waive the work search requirement, which means that as individuals collect reemployment assistance, unemployment generically, that they're not required to be in a work search mode. They're not required to be doing job search because, you know, the jobs are not quite there. But right now that waiver only lasts through September 5th. And so if that waiver is no longer in place in September, or even if it is waived through October, there will be another significant impact to people needing to access CareerSource Central Florida, and also, quite frankly, the other organizations in our region that are providing any kind of resources and support to employment. So we know that, as I mentioned, there are over 240,000 claimants in our region. And so that is, I think the number of claimants back in February was below 50,000 people. So it's a significant uptick of new individuals in the market. And I also will tell you that it's everyone at every level. So I have talked to vice presidents in the hospitality industry who have lost their jobs, as well as many, many people who are frontline workers, not only in hospitality and tourism, but many of the industries that supported, you know, our booming tourism economy. So it, you know, for an employer, there are a lot of incredible skills in the market right now. So, and we have been successful in matching people that have come in from one industry, you know, to get them quickly into another job within that industry. So it's important to not wait, particularly if you are furloughed and you think that that furlough might turn into a permanent layoff.
Well, Pam, just another data point that really helps us to understand what people are experiencing in our community. You've made a distinction between unemployment and reemployment. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
So reemployment is the name of the unemployment system in Florida. So back under Governor Scott, the governor rebranded the unemployment system to be the reemployment system. So reemployment is actually administered by the Department of Economic Opportunity, and CareerSource Central Florida and the 23 CareerSource boards around the state, we're partners to the department. We don't issue unemployment. It's probably really important to know. But what we can do is help people with the application process. And we have been doing that actually since March, since we all went virtual. We have done a number of different things. First of all, we have paper applications. If people want to complete a paper application and get that to the department, we've been issuing those. We also, through our contact center, the 800 number that I mentioned, if people are not able to complete what's called the PEGA system, it's just an acronym for the online application for DEO in the reemployment system, we could actually assist them and walk them through that. We also have individuals who are DEO staff that we oversee, who are able, if someone cannot reset their personal identification number, their PIN number, we can assist them with that. And we've been doing that since March, since all of the coronavirus crisis started happening. So, but there are still 3 more steps in the reemployment process with the department. We can help with that application piece, but the department itself actually has to do what's called adjudication. They have to verify wages and verify the employment and the address and all of the technical things that they have to do to actually issue a reemployment benefit. Occasionally, when people get stuck in that system, some of our staff can help to move a claim and escalate it. We've been somewhat successful in doing that, but I don't have to tell any of you that the state's system, the Connect system, had been very challenged during the last this last few months. They have made a lot of upgrades. They do have a lot more customer service operators that are still providing services to individuals. But you know, what we try to do is at least be a person on the phone to tell a person. Sometimes it can be as easy as try calling at this time. And that's been proving successful with getting people through to the DEO lines.
Pam, thank you so much. A lot of great information. Really appreciate it. I think it's important for us to hear. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diane, I believe that you have been able to join us. Are you
think
there?
So. Can
Diane,
you hear me?
You're a good friend. We can hear you.
Okay, yay.
We certainly acknowledged a little bit earlier Mayor Demings announcing the eviction diversion program and are looking forward to hearing more about it. So welcome. We're glad you're able to join us.
Thank you. I apologize, everyone. Some technical difficulties this afternoon. So I just wanted to start with kind of like a little bit of where Orange County started with this and just kind of briefly go over that. All the way back in March 23rd, we actually launched a program to try to help people who were renting with their rent, because we knew it was already going to be a crisis level based on the number of renters we have and the number of people who are rent burdened for the housing that they pay for. So we were helping approximately 1,500 households with that at a cost of $1.8 million. And right now we've already assisted close to 1,300. So we're close to wrapping up that program. But before that program wrapped up, the county decided, the Mayor Demings and the Board of County Commissioners decided to put $36.5 million into individual assistance through the CARES program from some of the CARES funding we received. So we did that through an online portal, and as of today, we have approved over 29,000 households at $1,000 each to go towards rent, utilities, those kind of things. And 25 million of that has already been issued in checks out to residents. So we're only finishing up the last 4,000 on that for payment. So as we started transitioning out of that and not quite out of it, then as you mentioned, Mayor Demings mentioned the eviction diversion program that we're also doing through CARES. So that's funded at this point at $20 million. And for that program, we're really trying to reach the people who would most likely be evicted. We're trying to make sure that we don't increase the homeless problem that we already have and try to get to those who really can't pay. So we do have some criteria for that. The residents should be 2 months behind as of August 31st. So we're trying to make this, it's an eviction diversion, not an eviction prevention program. So we're trying to get to the people a little deeper in who have the least options for being able to get out of the situation once they're in it. So they do have to be Orange County residents, obviously, 2 months behind. And then one other major part of this is the landlord and the tenant have to agree to work together. So the landlord has to agree to participate as well as the tenant. The program will pay up to $4,000 for rent in arrears. We are asking the landlords to forgive any fees or anything like that. We are focusing strictly on rent. And we're asking the landlords, if they participate in this and agree to participate it with their tenants, that they accept the $4,000 and then they forgive any other debt above that and would not proceed with any eviction proceedings for at least 60 days. We are also trying to look at the tenant's ability to pay to see if we get them caught up, hopefully with unemployment if that comes out, or if somebody's working in the home, they'd be able to pay the next 2 months. We're hoping to kind of get them through the worst of it and to make sure we don't have a lot of people that wind up homeless because they have no other options. So we're doing it online because both the landlord and the tenant have to participate and apply. And it's kind of a bit of a three-part thing at the moment. So a tenant can go apply themselves and they do a pre-screen. And if they're available, then an email will be sent to their landlord asking the landlord saying your tenant has applied, will you be willing to participate in this program, and giving them the link. The landlord can also go on there themselves, even if the tenant hasn't applied, and say, I have a tenant and this is their situation and I'm interested in working with them. And then if they apply, they'll give their tenant's information and the tenant will be sent a link. We're working with the Orange County Bar Association. They're actually being the first review of all the applications. And then we're also trying to work with community legal services and legal aid. So if there's someone who's not a fit for the program, but they still need help, they could help use legal help to prevent the eviction or get some help with how to work with their landlord. So we're trying to work with them also to see what we can do to try to assist them. And then we're also looking to make other referrals. So we're targeting at least 5,000 households, but we're hoping between 5,000 and 8,000. But that will just depend on how much the arrears are for the tenants and the landlords who get approved. The max is 4,000. If we pay the max for everyone, it would be about 5,000. But we're hoping it won't be the max for everyone because we're hoping many of the people who did finally get unemployment will not be as far behind in their rent. So that's kind of big picture of the program of what we're hoping to do, and we're trying to do it strictly online. And we're looking at, we do have libraries who have availability for computers. For the tenant, we're not asking a lot of documentation, so we feel like they could, if they had to, do a lot of that from their smartphone. And then the landlords are able to upload their information separately. So even though we're matching them together, they don't know, the tenant doesn't necessarily see the landlord's information and the landlord doesn't see the tenant. So that's kind of how we're trying to work it. We want to match them together, but allow them to submit their information separately. So that's kind of big picture of what we're doing. And in addition to that, just to add a little bit, that's eviction diversion, but you know, Orange County also got additional funds for some other programs. So we're very busy with LIHEAP, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. We received additional funding for that. So we're putting a lot of effort into trying to get some of that money also out as quickly as we can. So if we don't reach somebody with rent, maybe we can reach them another way. And also as part of our CARES funding, Orange County funded a lot of social service programs, including Homeless Services Network, Coalition, the mental health programs, because I think we all know this has been and continues to be incredibly anxiety producing. And so that's one of the things we don't want to forget. And also Second Harvest, because we really need food. So we've also done a lot of things in that arena too with our CARES funding. So
Thank you, Diane. Big program with lots going on. It's great to hear. We're going to have a chance to ask questions to Diane in just a moment. I encourage you to use the Q&A feature, but before we do that, I wanted to go to our friend Karam with the Coalition for the Homeless of Central Florida to hear about the Crisis Assistance Fund. Karam? Karam, if you're speaking, you might still be on mute. I don't hear Karam. Karam, if you're able to unmute and join us, just holler out. In the meantime, I'll ask a question. You mentioned it, Diane, but I'd ask both Osceola County and Seminole County as well, because we've been doing this a couple different ways as we've gone along. Could you talk a little bit about, you talked about trying to make it easy for people with documents. How do people provide the documents that you're asking for the diversion program?
So most of the documents, all of the documents can be uploaded through the portal, and most of the documents we're asking for are we streamlined the documentation requirements. For example, we're allowing people to self-certify in terms of their assets and their incomes in order to make sure they meet it. So we're asking for limited documentation there. And any of the documentation, the system we're actually using Neighborly software, which is the same system we use for the small business program, and it works well for people being able to upload their documents. They could actually take pictures of documents and upload them from their smartphone because it's not a real intensive application. And again, because the landlord and tenant are separate, the landlord has to upload some other things, but that's from the landlord side.
And Diane, could I just ask as well, I think I understood, and if I have this wrong, please correct me, that part of it is that you're looking at the renter's ability to pay going into the future. Could you just talk about the documentation or how they would demonstrate that?
So we're not looking for a ton of documentation with that. We're looking at them to be able to fill out some information, which again, they could do on their smartphone or a computer, just to say if they're getting any unemployment, or possibly if one person in their household is working, but not the other person. Does it look like they would have a good possibility to be able to pay in the future? We also would look at, as I mentioned, like LIHEAP, or look at some others to see if there's anything we might be able to do with another program that might be able to put them in a better position to pay their rent for the next couple of months to be able to get through there. So we're trying to look at it from a big picture standpoint and see what we can do from that system. Because what we're really hoping is that, one, we prevent the eviction now, but we also try to prevent the eviction, going forward until we can get enough more jobs going and get things going that they remain stable, they remain in their housing and don't wind up being out later also.
Thank you. There's one more question, but before I offer that, just want to remind everybody, if you have a question for Diane, and later if you have a question that you just want to pose to the panel, please put it in the Q&A box, and we'll certainly try to get to it. Diane, there was a question from one of our attendees asking about undocumented renters. Would they qualify for the eviction diversion program or any other services?
So for the eviction diversion program, they do have to be legal residents. We do have to have, we are not requiring at this point the upload of Social Security cards. So as I mentioned, we're doing streamlined documentation. So we're using photo IDs and stuff just because it is a household program. So I want to make that clear. It's a household program. Therefore, we are asking them to list on the application everyone in the household, so that we can make sure that we're only providing the assistance to, to one household, not to multiple members in the household. So it is focused on, we have to have also, because we want the landlords to know that they're on the lease, again, because the landlords are participating also. The landlords are giving us from their side, everyone, all the adults and everything that's on the lease. So it's really focused toward that.
And Diane, actually another question popped up, so I'm gonna go ahead and share it with you. It says, are people able to apply for the diversion program if they received rent assistance from another agency, but that was not enough to stabilize them?
So people can apply for the eviction diversion program as long as any other funding they received did not we're not paying the same thing. So if they received funding, for example, that paid their May rent, if they're behind June and July, that's fine. They would still qualify for the eviction diversion, but they can't apply for something that's already been taken care of by other funding of any type.
That certainly makes sense. I'm going to see if, thank you, Diane, very much. First of all, a lot of great information, huge program. Thank you for all that great information. Karam, I just wanted to see, are you able to join us?
Can you hear me?
We can, wonderful.
Yay!
Let me throw it over to you. We're anxious to hear about your program.
Yes, I work for Coalition for the Homeless, and through Orange County, we also receive some CARES funding through the Diversion and Prevention Program. Clients can come in and meet with us personally, or they can call the intake center. We do ask for some type of documentation, of course. They have to be affected by COVID, loss of income, if they've been furloughed, lost their job, We do ask for paperwork. We provide rental assistance. We do it in a case by case. We don't say we're going to do this amount or that amount. We look at the, how much they're behind. We contact the landlords, the apartment complexes, and get a little more information on documentation. We also help with hotel extensions. If we have people that stay in hotels and obviously they don't have any additional money to continue paying, we can assist with that also. The best way, like I said, to apply is to contact us directly by phone or to come in person.
Thank you, Karam. Did you want to say something else?
No, I say if anybody has any questions, let me mention we don't provide assistance for utilities. That's the only thing we're not able to provide at this time.
And I'll remind everybody, if you have a question for Karam, or I'll say for anybody in the panel, you can certainly enter that in the Q&A box, and we'd be happy to pose it to our panel. Karam, I had a question. The assistance for those that are in a hotel, could you talk a little bit more about that? That's at least in my experience, that sort of assistance is unusual. So could you talk a little bit about some of the parameters of that and how people would access that?
Yes, we do have families. They are already, struggling, and they had to go to hotels. So we do obviously ask for the documentation, make sure that they were impacted by COVID, and then we contact the hotel. We see how much they need to pay to continue staying for the hotel. Staying at the hotel. We can pay for 2 or 3 weeks. We talk to the client to see how they're going to be able to sustain, or what is the plan after, we provide assistance for those 2 or 3 weeks. And then we just pay directly to the hotel for them to continue staying there for additional weeks.
And Karam, is it like 2 weeks, or is it open ended? How does that work?
We try to do 2 or 3 weeks at a time. If they need additional help after that, we reassess and determine if we can, pay additional weeks. But we usually start with 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay, great. And another question that's come up is, I think I heard you say the best way to connect to your programs is to contact you. Could you talk a little bit about, do they come to the coalition or through a portal, and also the documentation that they might need to have and how they would provide that to you?
Yes, they can come here to the Intake Center at Coalition for the Homeless at 18 North Terry Avenue. Or they can contact us by phone at 407-872-5790. We can do the assessment over the telephone if they call and they let us know, what type of assistance they're looking for. We'll direct them to, we transfer to a housing counselor, and they complete an assessment and let the person know the documents that we need. Or they can, like I said, they can come in person. We're open Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We do ask for, letter of employment if they were furloughed or dismissed due to COVID. We ask that they provide a letter. Unfortunately, we don't do it based on self-report. We had to have some documentation to support what they're requesting. If they say that they're behind on mortgage, we need to have documentation from the mortgage company. If they're behind on rent, we do ask for documentation, or if we need to contact the landlord directly, we do that also. But we do need to have documentation to support, the assistance.
Great, thank you. Sounds like a great program, Karam. We really appreciate you sharing about it, and it's important information for us to share. Before I thank our panel and turn it over to Jeff to bring us to a close, want to invite one last time to our attendees, if you have any questions you'd like to pose to the panel or a member of our panel, please put that in the question and answer box. I just wanted to share a reminder as well. I had mentioned earlier how 211 is tracking calls for evictions, and of course, we also track for what other requests we're receiving. But for those that are service providers on our convening today and are part of the resource database, certainly want to ask and encourage you to update and keep current the resources that we have about your programs and your organization in the resource database. We very much want to provide the absolute best information we can to those that are calling the 211 center and rely on you to help us to do that as we go forward. I don't see any other questions in the question and answer box, so I want to express my gratitude to what an incredible panel. So knowledgeable, your expertise is very much appreciated. So I want to thank Diane Arnold, Karen Murena, Carrie Langsworth, Celestia McLeod, Pam Neighbors, and Allison Thal for just a great conversation. Certainly something very important, an issue clearly by the number of participants that we've had on this convening that a lot of people are concerned about and want to try to do something about. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to the President and CEO of the Heart of Florida United Way, Jeff Hayward. Jeff, if you're speaking, you might still be on mute. Let's see here. Jeff, are you able to join us? Okay. Well, if Jeff was able to join us, I think he would say things like,
oh, there we go, Ray.
Oh, there you are. Okay. We're glad you're joined.
Evidently, Rosanna had blocked my microphone and I was not able to unmute myself. I assure you my entire team would love to have that option on a daily basis in working with me. Thank you, Ray, and I appreciate your facilitating this conversation. And I just want to express my appreciation to all of the panelists. Again, I said at the top of the convening, you're all very busy. If we were in person, there would be a tremendous round of applause, both for your time and your expertise, but also for all of the work you're doing in trying to support the residents here in Central Florida as we all try and get to the other side of this global pandemic. There is a post just now in the chat, you'll see. It is a link for a blog post of resources. That resource list is live. I would urge all of you to continue to check that link, use that link as we continue to keep it up to date. It is a connection to our website. You know, one message we have been trying to send out to the community and anyone who will listen, quite frankly, is that we're not going to be able to philanthropy our way out of this. You know, I've heard from several folks, you know, that philanthropy needs to step up, and I find that a little bit comical. You know, philanthropy has been trying to raise an awful lot of money, and yet the folks that we would turn to, of course, are the very donors who are facing unemployment and facing financial hardship themselves. You know, foundations have stepped up. We've gone into our own reserves and used those dollars. We have appealed to the community, and the community has been very generous and gracious in responding to us in our specific appeal around the Alice Fund that Ray mentioned. But the reliance on nonprofits is just not going to be there this time. We cannot hold another car wash or another bake sale or anything like that to get to the other side of this. It seems that every time any type of resource is stood up, it's an overwhelming demand on the response. You know, our own Alice Fund, we raised $2 million because of the generosity here in Central Florida. Unfortunately, the demand on those resources eclipsed $16 million in need and requests. So certainly the need is far outpacing the resources we've been able to raise. We know that Orange County, when they opened up their rental assistance program a month or so ago, 2 months ago, again, that system was overwhelmed with the number of folks who were seeking assistance. Seminole County, the same thing. Their website within minutes had received thousands of calls, links, and people trying to get to it, and it's not going to stop. That's going to continue to happen. Ray mentioned the 211 call volume. We would average about 700 calls a day. At one point, we were experiencing 3,200 to 3,400 calls a day. And even today, as we speak, it's still double. This is unprecedented. The demand is outpacing all of the dollars that we have, even collectively. But we do still need to respond. You heard today some new resources that are out there. Again, Orange County just released their eviction diversion program. Seminole has stood theirs up. Osceola is there. Pam Neighbors and Career Source are standing up new resources that she's been able to get, and the coalition. The resources, we're responding as quickly as we can. We are responding. We are trying to stand them up. But again, it's overwhelming, the response we're getting. Again, I want to thank the jurisdictions for their leadership and their care that they have provided over these last couple of months in trying to keep people housed, put food on their table, keep the utilities going, and just keep their children and their families safe. And we can't thank you enough for what you do each and every day, everyone on this panel, but also the hundreds of people on your teams behind you that work hard every day. Again, there is the link in the chat box of the resources. It is live. It will be updated on a regular basis. So in closing, I just want to thank you all for joining us today. One more shout out and round of applause for our panelists. And to all of you, please stay safe and take care of one another. Thank you.